Hello and welcome to the 39th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I'm joined by my brother Rob.
Boom!
Boom! How you doing, man?
Doing all right. Channeling some Steve Jobs over here.
Nice.
His announcements.
Yes, Steve Jobs, not quite as boom as he used to be.
That's sad.
People saying he's looking thin yet energetic. That seemed to be like the tagline I saw all over the web. But this week we're going to devote all of our time to geek news.
Today is a news extravaganza episode because there's just so much going on.
There is a lot, and we're going to kick this off with Apple, who did their now annual September conference they held, where the thin yet energetic Steve Jobs made it onto the stage with a slide that said, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated."
Oh.
Borrowing a little Mark Twain there, yeah. But anyway, he announced some things that I think are pretty big. A lot of the media saying, oh, it's not as big as we expected.
Whatever.
But why don't we get into that? So the first thing was the iPod Touch, which is being dubbed the funnest iPod ever.
Yeah.
I gotta ask, is funnest a word? Are we allowed to say funnest?
It's most fun. I learned that very early on. I think it was even like first grade. My teacher was correcting me. Funnest is not a word, Apple.
Okay, that's
but
what
then
I thought.
Again, you know what? Think different. Not exactly grammatically correct either. So Apple just, it's think differently.
Great designers, poor spelling, is how we can sum it up. But yes, the new iPod Touch is apparently the funnest. It's got a more curvaceous back, was one of the features. It's got a hardware volume control, but it was just minor adjustments. That didn't grab the most attention, but it is a little bit cheaper now, so that's always nice. But Rob, why don't you tell us about the iTunes 8 announcement?
They came up with this new big feature in iTunes, which is called Genius.
Right.
In keeping with their whole genius bar.
A very humble term.
Oh, yes. Hubris is not something that besets any Apple user.
Which you are now one of. Go ahead.
If anybody's ever used Pandora, which is, I think we talked about it on an episode earlier, maybe not. But it's this great website. You go to, I guess, Pandora.com.
Yeah.
And it's a radio station that just basically you say, well, I like this song. Like, not even this band, but this specific song I like the sound of. So give me anything that sounds like that and let me hear it. So basically, Apple took that concept and applied it to iTunes and shopping. So
Pandora was based on sort of the timing and the rhythm of the song, like 200 different like musical characteristics.
Yeah.
This actually sort of opts you into like a global playlist engine where all of the other iTunes users are analyzed for what they're playing. So it's more like there's an actual brain behind this.
I wouldn't be surprised if Apple actually dipped a bit into the so-called music Genome project because it's up and it's running and it's pretty cool. I tried it out. I installed it today. And just as a test, I picked a Muse B-side. I picked Dead Star.
Right.
And
awesome track.
Exactly. Instantaneously, recommendations popped up.
Good recommendations?
So far, they were cool-sounding songs, but they weren't necessarily as amazing as Dead Star.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. It's going to obviously give you the best it can, but I think there isn't the sort of hive mind yet. All of the iTunes users, as they contribute to it, Steve Jobs was saying it will get smarter. So this will be a feature that sort of matures with age. We'll have to keep our eye on that one.
So cool. And I guess that it's worth mentioning the new Nanos were announced now at Apple. Nanochromatics.
Haha. And if anybody's familiar with the sort of podcast Dig Nation or the website Dig, they'll know Kevin Rose, who is Dig's founder, and he actually called this one. A little while ago, he had an insider that let him know about the new Nano, and he showed a picture of this like months ago. And I was surprised to see that it was the exact picture that he had. So the blogosphere, the podcastatorium, apparently
it's come through.
Yeah, Steve Jobs, I think, made a mention of it during his thing. He said, for those third parties that spoil these before we want to, it's not funny. So obviously ticking off Apple a little bit, but
Steve Jobs is like, it's not funny! It's not!
Yeah, exactly.
All right, sorry. Cancer is making him a little...
Yeah, blame it on the cancer. That would be the best Apple conference ever if you saw the enraged side of Steve Jobs. But anyway, so yes, the new Nano, I thought it was kind of cool. You shake it to shuffle.
Yeah.
That's no joke. You actually grab the thing and shake it, and it shuffles your songs. So, like Etch-a-Sketch, the next generation or something.
Right. I mean, they put an accelerometer in this thing, like they have in the iPhone and stuff. And it's interesting to see Apple borrowing a page from Microsoft here. The Zune concept of having a tall screen that then you turn sideways to watch your movies. They're doing that.
Yeah.
And so turning it sideways, they obviously are like, well, we need the accelerometer for that. And then they're like, what else can we do with this? How about you shake it and it shuffles?
That's right. And it includes Genius as well as a feature, so you can utilize that. Obviously, you're not going to join the global Genius, but you're at least the local version where you can it'll pick from your library.
Well, it comes in 9 colors. I just wanted to show that 9 flavors, as Apple would probably have you, because you want to lick it.
Yeah, people don't care about megajigs and gigawatts. They want to love it, and they want to pick the color that. All right, I'm sorry, I'm going off.
If you can find that quote or that clip, go ahead.
I used to have that MP3 file, but anyway, so the 9 flavors.
So here's what you need to say like 3 times fast. Ready?
Go.
Silver, black, purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, pink. Wait.
Those are pretty normal.
When it's 9, it loses its rhythm. If it was 8, it would be fine. But 9, you're just like, okay. Silver,
8.
Black, purple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red, pink.
Done in record time. Those are actually pretty normal sounding colors. I was expecting like turquoise and dewberry or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's in foo-foo berry and lick-a-daisy.
I think we have a bunch of tips that would ruin Apple in a second.
This is why we don't work at Apple.
Correct. We don't want to get our faces rubbed by the bare foot of Steve Thin yet energetic Jobs.
Not funny!
So anyway, to sum this all up, I thought it was crazy that Apple stock fell 7 points during the course of this event.
Ouch.
I read that and I was like, really? That can happen? But I guess, again, the global age we live in, the genius cloud hovering now over us somewhere. People apparently, I don't know if they were just not as excited about this, but stock fell during the conference.
It's just because there wasn't an iPhone announcement, and ever since then, like everybody's been like, "Oh, will Apple announce a new iPhone?" We wonder.
I know. You know what? They put out a lot of products. I mean, I know iPod users that are really fed up how quickly their iPod is obsolete. So I don't think Apple needs to speed the product lineup any. I think they're just fine as they are.
Yeah.
So this is pretty good. Big news. Next news story we'll get into here. A lot of people heard our last week's show, which was about Mercenaries 2, and that game was developed by Pandemic. Well, Pandemic was actually making the Dark Knight video game.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, you're probably wondering, that movie made $400 million, so where's the game? Pandemic was making it, and during the development, it got canned somehow. It's shadowy details, but anyway, by not making a game, it cost EA like $100 million in sales.
What?
Now that, I don't know quite how they figured that out, but Game Informer actually broke the word that Rocksteady Studios is going to be developing Batman: Arkham Asylum.
Yes.
And this game is...
it looks amazing. There were a few leaked photos of it. Like, this is one of the sexiest looking games I've ever seen, and it's like all reimagined, kind of like how the Joker looks, how Killer Croc looks.
It's being co-written by Paul Dini, who is the writer of the Batman animated series.
Yes.
So that is awesome. And then yesterday, the news broke that the Joker in this game will be voiced by Mark Hamill.
Yes!
So geek heads exploded everywhere, all over the continent. That's a lot of reasons to get pumped.
Amazing. I gotta wonder if the reason why there's not a Dark Knight video game is because Heath Ledger isn't around to voice the Joker, But it kind of ticks me off that EA even, writes that off as some sort of loss, Like, they get mad at Pandemic or somebody for, not making a game and then are like, we lost a lot of money. It's like, you didn't invest anything in it. How can you have lost money? It just makes the whole franchise-based game thing stink a little more than it already does.
Yeah, and who knows what the Dark Knight game would have been.
Yeah.
But I actually agree with EA that they would have made a crap ton of money because those games sell.
True.
Licensed games sell a ton. Unfortunately, the advice I would have to gamers is read reviews, become educated, and buy the good ones, because they only make these licensed Toy Story 2 video games because they sell.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they sell a lot of times to casual market, like grandma, buys the Ratatouille game or whatever.
Yeah, I remember Peter Molyneux, the guy behind Fable and games like that, being interviewed, and he was talking about, making audacious games, that are just like
right.
crazy, mind-blowing things that nobody's ever thought of. And they always don't sell very well,
Yeah,
but,
Psychonauts is the big, tier right there, is that this game, Psychonauts, which, is an amazing experience, as good as any, Tim Burton movie or whatever, combining all the sales of all of its versions. It didn't sell as well as
Jaws.
As Jaws Unleashed or whatever.
Which is
it's
a terrible game.
Yeah, I know,
and Peter Molyneux was talking about, he was hired to make a SpongeBob game, and it sold the best out of anything he's ever made, and his reaction was just kind of, subdued, but he was like, huh, that's interesting.
Well, I'm going to go kill myself now, if that's all right.
Exactly.
That just makes you want to give up, almost, But please, the makers of Batman Arkham Asylum, please don't give up.
Yeah.
Make the most butt-kicking Batman game you can, because
with any luck, it's going to be another Chronicles of Riddick, and very much it reminds me of that, with the sort of super amazing graphics.
It really does.
Beefed up characters, and taking place in a prison where you're kind of fighting for your own survival. I'm already excited for it, and I barely know a thing about it.
Exactly. That's why I keep trying to check my geek enthusiasm. But I can't help it. It just looks really sweet. So that right away is shot up to one of my most anticipated games, just because the screenshots are amazing. So anyway, that was Batman Arkham Asylum. Moving on to the next news story on our plate, Samurai Showdown 2.
Yes.
In other gaming news, has been released on Live Arcade, Xbox Live Arcade. It's pretty awesome. There was a little bit of a scandal here involving the amount of money it costs, because Major Nelson, who's the big Xbox Live correspondent, he said it was 400 points, which is about $5, and then it ended up being 800 points, which is about $10. And I say either one of those, still a good deal for Samurai Showdown 2. Sweet SNK Neo Geo fighting game from back in the day, and this includes the blood. This one's not censored like the home versions. So,
oh yay!
Yeah, that game had arterial spray. But anyway, so check out Samurai Showdown 2.
I remember going to the arcades and playing that game. It was one of the first really amazing sort of SNK games that distinguished itself from Street Fighter and that type of stuff.
Well, would you pay $10 for it? I mean, is that too much? Because
no.
The reaction was kind of like, oh, wait a minute, $10?
Tell you what, the kids in the day would spend $50 on that game,
and not take it home with them.
Well, I'm just saying, there's this whole sort of debacle going on right now over Xbox Live and the price of its games, and honestly, there are far worse games for far more money,
Yes.
So $10 for an amazing fighting game, like a classic, not at all.
Not a problem.
Expensive, Braid, which is $15 and got a lot of hoopla for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, you go to EB and you can find tons of games for $60 that are just schlock.
Yeah. What else can you say? They're schlock. You heard it here first.
The more you know.
So this to me is kind of surprising, because I thought that the Xbox Live summer of awesomeness had ended. You had Braid and you had Castle Crashers and you had Bionic Commando and all this stuff. And it was kind of like, okay, they can't keep this level up. But this, I think, continues it. So I don't know. We'll see. What's next week going to hold? We'll find out.
Another kick to the crouch for American gamers.
There you go.
Exactly.
Calm down, fanboys. This game's worth it. I don't know what else to say. Samurai Showdown 2, SS2, as I like to call it. And that probably is a good cue for our nostalgia segment of this week. Every week we like to get a little nostalgic, reminisce about growing up geek. And this week, a lot of people celebrated the 9th anniversary of the Sega Dreamcast.
Whoa.
Sega Dreamcast was released on 9/9/99, and that is 9 years ago. So a lot of nines falling into place, and that's caused a lot of people to reminisce about that semi-failed Sega system. But we never owned a Dreamcast.
No, we didn't.
But we did own another failed system. And so let us take a moment to give homage to a system which is not 9 years old, but it is 19 years old, and that is the TurboGrafx 16.
Yes.
This was a birthday gift for you, I remember, Rob.
It was a birthday gift for me. I don't know why. I saw that thing in Toys R Us, and I wanted it.
So it was 16-bit? How could you not? I mean, you had an 8-bit system.
I know.
Why would you not want? It's twice as good, right?
It's 2 more. I mean, sorry, 8 more.
How many did you say?
Twice as many. There was some sort of, like, it wasn't quite 16-bit.
Well, it had a 16-bit graphics chip, but it had an 8-bit processor.
Right.
So, yeah, it was a little bit of false advertising. But in that day, if you didn't have a bit at the beginning of your system or on your box or something, you weren't worth crap.
Bits were what it was all about, man. I mean, like, I don't even know what the measure of a gaming system is today, but back then...
Well, I think they're all 64-bit now, because that's like the processors of today.
Because of that, nobody can, like, tout the bit rate of their system.
So let's throw out some of our favorite just memories of the TurboGrafx. What was it good for? Yeah. The games came on little cards. That was nice.
That was cool. And what made that even cooler was, like, those little cards worked well with the Turbo Express, which was the TurboGrafx but portable. So essentially you could take the same games you played on the big screen on the road for 30 minutes that the battery, like the 8 AA batteries would immediately drain.
Yeah, it was like a portable... Okay, it was color in a time when Game Boy was not, and it had the same games that you played on the home console. Now, that was cool.
That was revolutionary, and I remember I even went to a expo once that showed off all these different consoles in glass boxes, and it showed the TurboGrafx 16, and the line that they gave for that thing was, could have been a contender. Like, it really was just on the cusp of being as relevant as Sega Genesis and as Super Nintendo.
Favorite titles?
Keith Courage and the Alpha Zone.
That was a pack-in game, so you actually liked that, huh?
I did. Well, I mean, maybe I just have, like, fond memories because, like, you were able to jump into a robot machine.
I remember pointing at the leg of the robot and being like, Mom, look how many colors are in that leg. Don't tell me that's not worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, yeah, so we got that. Of course, Bonk's Adventure.
That was a good game. And the whole TurboGrafx 16 catalog is now available on Wii, or quite a few of them. And Bonk's Adventure is definitely one worth checking out. Still kind of holds up.
Yeah, we had Air Zonk, we had Bonk's Adventure, we had Impossible, which I'm sure probably we were the only... In fact, why don't you tell them about the impulse buy of all impulse buys?
JJ and Jeff?
Yes, a game where you kick turds.
I'm
not making that stuff up. I mean,
that's not what it comes down to. Okay. But pretty much that's the highlight of the game. Can I just say, who puts 2 characters in the title? Yeah. And it's a single player game.
Yeah,
like it was JJ and Jeff, and you play as either JJ or Jeff.
Yeah, there was no 2-player mode, but there was many turds to be kicked.
Yes.
It was very weird, and this was, like I said, an impulse buy.
Well, it had, like, really nice graphics,
Yeah, exactly. We picked it because of the box art, and you would kick a mailbox and a turd would come out. It's just so strange. Oh, Lord.
And people now officially think we've lost it.
Yes.
We even had problems with the system where we had to buy some sort of attachment for the back so that it could plug into our TV and work properly.
Yeah.
It was messed up, but I gotta say, I mean, just like with Dreamcast, like, it wasn't something that I necessarily regret owning.
No.
We got a lot of good times out of it, a lot of fun.
No, we totally did. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that there were systems that, like, I said semi-failed about the Dreamcast, because there's a ton of great games that came out for that, and I'm sure in its own way, NEC, did provide some competition.
Yeah.
I think we were never the kids with the most popular system.
I had an Atari Lynx. We owned a 32X for our Genesis and a Sega CD.
Yeah, I think we always had a soft spot for the little guy.
Largely because we were suckers for great graphics. And
yeah. Man, you flipped out when you opened that box. So, no regrets. Yeah. We love you, TurboGrafx.
No regrets.
And 19 years old. Actually, just turned 19 at the end of last month. So, not a bad time to celebrate that. But I think that'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Let's wrap that up.
But one more thing. Oh, just kidding.
Boom.
Just kidding, Steve Jobs. We love you. Take care of yourself.
Take care.
So for this week, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to send us an email, you may do so. Our email address is mail@growing-up-geek.com. Hope you enjoyed it. Once again, my name is Brad.
It's not funny!
And we'll see you next week.